themselves to achieve what they wanted the most.
Don't scare it! Prevents it! Fighting on the one next fight, but now in trouble.
He's feeling himself in here. Pollard not staying. He wants one more. And he's going to get it. Trouble. That's my face.
Let's go!
It's double triple. Through your death in the quadrant. It's going to be a passion of the Kevin.
And the first time in history, the fourth consecutive EU LCS title. G2 Esports.
Welcome to week 3 of the EU LCS Spring Split. The race for the top spots is heating up, and with the new contenders finding their form, we have got some explosive fights ahead of us. Good evening, everyone. I'm EpicSkillshot, joined here once again by Maurice Amazing Stuckenschneider to start off the week.
I'm glad to be back.
I'm very glad that you're back as well. Let's dive straight into the standings after 2 weeks. We've seen a lot of surprises already, and currently leading the league are Vitality, Roccat, Giants, and Misfits. And when it comes to Vitality and Misfits, they just battled it out last week against each other. Misfits won in the end, and Vitality gave up their #1 spot. But how much the wiser about their power levels are we after that match?
I still think that both teams are really, really strong, probably equally strong. Vitality came in with a great early to mid game. They've shown a lot of aggression. They showed what they are capable of. And Misfits came back with the National Steel, obviously, and showed that their team fight prowess later in the game carries them through wins.
But no man overboard for Vitality, but it does raise the question, how will they now do with that first loss under their belt? Maurice, you were very vocal about their emotions and how emotional they may be as the season goes on. So what do you think will happen?
I think the emotions were already let loose kind of on Twitter, especially when he saw mini true packs, and I think Jack Trolls unfollowing everyone and just showing that they're really showing emotions about that very loss. But I think they had a week to reset now, so I wouldn't expect them to come in like shaky, whatever it is. I actually think that Yamato can rail them in.
Well, we'll see how resilient they are today, and we'll also have to see how resilient G2 and Fnatic are. Two of the top teams from last year now at the bottom of the table. So same question, how are they going to come into this week, and how do you think they've ended up in this position?
I think both teams are really still trying to find their groove. I think especially the bot lanes themselves, like they seem kind of out of sync with the rest of the team, especially Hjernen and Vadid. Almost like gave away a couple of wins, and I think that has to change for them to perform to their other best.
All right, we will see what happens. They have a lot to play with as they will be playing on patch 8.2 this week. And Dracos, you are here to take a closer look at some of those changes.
Yes, I am shocked. 8.2, pretty large patch. There's a lot to cover, so we're going to break it down into 3 different categories. Champions, changes to support itemization, and some changes to runes as well. Starting off in the champions, there is one big fat buff we have to talk about, and it's on Big Fat Nunu. Consume now not only makes him stronger, but something you need to be aware of is Blood Boil. You can see this wonderful clip, this wonderful simulation of 8.2, Nunu and Azir together. AP, attack speed, Azir absolutely loves to have it, and you should keep your eyes out on the Rift for Nunu to be a massive threat if he does make it into the late game. But on the side of nerfs, of course, Malzahar has been taken down a notch. K6 and Ezreal as well have been tuned down just a little bit. But the biggest nerf I feel like overall is probably to Ornn. His ult cooldown is way up. 30 seconds more as we go later in the game can be a huge change to how often he can impact team fights overall. And additionally, his laning phase is going to hurt a lot more because Bellows Breath, his W, now has the unstoppable portion removed. Arguably larger than this, though, is the support itemization nerfs. First off, 50% healing value for ranged champions who want to abuse that Relic Shield. That means the double Relic Shield bot lane, a lot weaker in terms of lane sustain. However, it does still give the full gold value, so if you're looking for the economic benefits, they are there. However, across the board, support itemization has changed too. All quests, they're now the same quest. You get a Sight Stone at the end of it, but that may be good for supports. They don't have to buy a Sightstone anymore. 80 carries, really sad. They have the reduced healing. Now they don't get the Targon shield either. Additionally, a lot of the items have been removed that would have built out of this. Now, supports for the most part didn't build them. Face of the Mountain, Talisman of Ascension, not something we saw a lot in competitive play, but Frost Queen's claim is a big one, not for supports, but for mid laners and for top laners. They really like to have the gold generation. The active was useful as well, but most importantly, the economic change, the hurt it's going to put on them from generating gold over a longer time can be a pretty big issue. Last thing we want to cover is runes. Kleptomancy has been tuned back. No longer are you going to get quite as many items when you look across the early game. This means your GPs and your Ezreals aren't as frequently going to get those 10, 11-minute Triforces. It's going to be a lot harder for them to kind of abuse this to power spike earlier in the game. And the last thing we have to talk about is Zombie Ward. This is actually a huge vision change. You saw the entire map littered in 8.1. It's going to be a little bit rougher now because as opposed to before when you would get a 3-minute duration on all the wards, the zombie wards, you're now going to get 1 minute at the start of the game. It's scaling up to 3 minutes over the course of the game, so tracking early jungle pathing, preventing early ganks will be a little bit more difficult, but of course it was a very dense patch. That's just what impressed me. Shox, what was your impression?
Well, I have to say I hear a lot about AD carry or bot lane in general changes together with the support changes, and then Ezreal with a bit of a nerf. Also, Jinx has got a slight buff, and you talked a lot about AD carries and the ones of G2 in specific. So how much is this really going to affect the bottom lane?
I'm really happy about the Ezreal change. I think he was too dominant almost in the ultimate game, and it will definitely take him down a notch. And Jinx now coming in, actually having that attack speed buff, is definitely going to shake up the field quite a bit.
All right, that's all very interesting, but I think it's about time for Maurice's minutes. I want to know the single most thing that you are most excited about going into this week.
I'm excited about the jungle changes. I think it's been a really stale meta. Like, we've seen a lot of Jarvan, Sejuani, and the recent changes to Nunu, Eve, and Kha'Zix will kind of change up the field, because I think Nunu now being buffed means that he's going to be like entering that space that Sejuani and J4 have been dominating for such a long time, where they basically are able to gank early, force teamfights whenever they want to, and dominate every 1v1. And I think that's going to change quite a bit now, with Nunu and Zac already showing some up-and-coming play. And we've seen the win rates, we've seen play rates like of Jarvan and Sejuani. I think it's going to be like a top 4 coming in, where all 4 champions are going to see equal play in multiple comps.
Well, I'd be very excited to see a bit of a changing up in the jungle pool. Not always Jarvan and Sejuani. Obviously, we've seen a lot of Zac already, but Nunu in the mix. Now, that would be very exciting, and we'll see how that evolves as we continue. But now let's take a look at the schedule and see what kind of impacts the patch will have on these matches. We're going to start things off with the Unicorns of Love and H2K. We also have Giants versus Roccat for first place, and our match of the week, Schalke 04 versus Vitality. Quick prediction, who's going to win, Schalke or Vitality?
Gilius.
Gilius is going to win in that matchup. Well, that's all we need to know. We've got the Unicorns of Love and H2K ready on stage right now, with the Unicorns looking to secure their first win of the split against that new H2K roster. Let's send it over to the casters and hit the rift.
Thank you very much.